Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty Hildebrand. Joining me, as always, over there in New York City, my man Dan Rubenstein, sir. That was very FM radio voice of me.
Coming at you, Ty Hildebrand, Allentown, PA.
Dan Rubenstein. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. I am excited for this show. I have made a big deal this offseason and when we previewed the ACC Fatlantic of saying the ACC is joke-free.
Yeah.
So I have to back that up
in
talking about the ACC Coastal today. But I'm feeling good. I had a lot of energy for our Big Ten show. This one, I'm feeling more like Standard Dan, which is either good or bad, depending on everybody listening and how they shape their opinion of me.
You're back to Absolute Dan, is what I'm hearing.
I'm back, baby. Absolute Dan. That's right. The pH balance is on.
So listen, solidverbaltickets.com.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, 6 days now?
We got to see ya. 6
days until our big-time live show in Chicago. Going to be the biggest, going to be the best ever. We are drafting our 2018 fantasy things. Mm-hmm. I am very excited. We've got all sorts of tricks up our sleeve. We're going out afterwards to, what'd you call it, Standard Bar?
Standard Bar.
Yeah.
Hashtag Tenders with Ty.
We're going out afterwards. It's going to be a fun night out on the town with all of our verballers. We're very, very excited. There are a handful of tickets left. I know we've been saying that for a couple weeks now, but we really mean it. Solidverbaltickets.com is where you can get in on the action. You don't just need to be a verballer or a college football fan. I'm telling you, Dan and I put as much energy as we can into this, and we try to make it a show for everyone. We say it at the top of all of our live shows. If you're not a college football fan, even if you don't listen to the show, come on out anyway. Come hang out. It'll be a fun night out in Chicago.
Can I ask you a question about the show?
Yes, please.
I pitched you on something.
Yeah.
Over a G-Chat.
Oh, right.
So
it's
I don't
very
want to give
thematic for the show here, actually.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's your only hint. I pitched you on something that will add an element to the show, unlike any element we've ever put on stage at any of our live shows.
I'll do it. Sure.
On an affirmation, confirmation.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. We will be doing something visually.
Yeah.
This is starting to sound strange, but you're going to have to stay with me on this.
I'll do it.
So there is something happening visually in this show that has never occurred on any of our live shows.
No, that's fair. That's very fair.
I assume we'll get out if somebody is at the show and takes a picture, but I would say it's going to be a special happening exclusive to this live show.
That's going to be special, all right.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure. Now that has me excited.
Absolutely. The Solid Verbal, by the way, we are supported by Adventure Stage Chicago, where the theater inspires kids to become storytellers of their own lives. Adventure Stage Chicago presents their new season opening this October with the adventures of Robin Hood.
Ooh.
Tickets
I love Robin Hood.
Information available at www.adventurestage.org. So check them out.
Friar Tuck? Lil Jon?
Yeah, buddy.
Sure.
Yeah, buddy. So what are we doing today on the show? What's our plan of attack here? Our POA.
We are talking about the ACC Coastal and the AAC East, the American Athletic Conference Eastern Division, which has a number of teams that I think we could best define as sauce-filled.
Wait, what? Sauce-filled?
SAUCE. Like, if you look at certain position groups, if you look at certain momentum from last year to this year, additions to the roster, I think a lot of these teams have some sauce, Ty.
I'm looking at ECU, Cincinnati, and UConn at the bottom of our sheet.
Oh, now you're cherry picking.
And each one, I'm not kidding, each one in the notes field says meh.
Yeah. Okay.
Meh.
Accurate.
And meh. 10 wins combined among those three teams from a year ago. So that's fair.
That is true.
That's fair.
And I don't know if ECU, if Pirate or Bearcat or Husky fans would argue vehemently that there's that much more to say.
Is
about
sexy
any of those
Randy
teams.
Edsel still at UConn?
Hell yeah, he is.
We got to play sexier than Edsel at some point. Maybe later on in this show.
We can do it with coaches in the AAC East.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. All right.
ACC Coastal is, one of those sides of the ACC that you and I have had some fun with. Mm-hmm. I believe it was last year, maybe the year before, maybe 3 years running now, where we've played this little game of, did these two ACC teams play?
It was an impossible game.
It really is an impossible game because there are a lot of similarities among these teams, and for better or worse, gosh, a lot of them feel the same.
Well, you watch them. The game. A lot of these games between the non-heavyweights of the conference are that noon Eastern kick on whatever local channel the ACC network is in your local community, where it's Wake Forest, NC State, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, and you're like, I think I flipped past that.
Has UNC played Pitt?
Right,
yet?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What is your general takeaway? Now, keep in mind, the framework for all of our previews is why should people care? Mm-hmm. Because we're all adults at this point. Most of us are. And we've all got busy lives. Why should anyone give a damn about, Pitt football? Why? Tell me why. So I can tell
you right now, but
get to Pitt football. Don't spoil the surprise.
Sorry. Ooh, my bad.
Don't talk about Jester Weah out of turn, please. Thank you. But why should people care in general about the ACC Coastal?
Sure.
Tell me.
Oh, in general about the Coastal?
In general, yeah.
There is something to every team that you can talk yourself not just into bowl eligibility, but if there's one element firing that, after the end of last year where we saw Miami lose to Pitt?
Yeah, right.
Kenny Pickett in his very first start, go off against Miami. So there is something that is very democratic about the ACC Coastal, and that everybody has a voice. I'm not going to say in any given week anybody can win, because I think Virginia has a ways to go on offense. But we saw Virginia beat Boise State. We saw Virginia put the fear of life into Miami with Kurt Benkert last year, 2.5, 3 quarters worth, whatever.
Yeah.
And every so often, Georgia Tech comes back to the party and is like, oh yeah, we're going to win 10 games. Did we not mention that? We're going to win 10 games. And there is something ultimately entertaining and very middle of the third quarter, change the channel-y about the ACC Coastal. There's a random Duke Thursday night game at Virginia, or Virginia Tech's at Duke or something. And there is always that element of, you know what, I think I'm going to hang out and stay on this channel because it's getting a little weird.
Yeah.
And whether it's Pitt upsetting Clemson a couple years ago with your guy, Matt Canada, there's always that element of, it's halfway through the third quarter, I'm going to ignore everything else because for whatever reason, Virginia's feeling spunky this week.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. That makes it fun. It's good TV.
What kind of motto can we give the ACC Coastal to really jazz it up? Because there's a dog-eat-dog quality to it. Mm-hmm. Where every week you're just not sure what's going to happen. Can you help me workshop this over the course of an episode? What happens along the coast?
What was the show on HBO with Reese Witherspoon? Where there's a murder.
Big Little Lies?
Yeah, there's something very everything's calm and nice on the coast, but...
Because, we had ACC Fatlantic. I feel like we need an equal counterpart in the coastal.
Right. Okay.
Let's think about it. Let's think this through, okay?
Okay, we're big on branding.
Where should we start in the ACC, Dan? In the ACC Coastal, excuse me.
Let's start with the most ACC Coastal team, and that's Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech, all right. Georgia Tech every year, interesting. They lose Ted Roof, which I think is good for business. They're bringing in Nate Woody.
Yes.
Who I know is a guy from App State that you have sung the praises of for as long as I can remember. Now, this is kind of a big deal because the thing with Georgia Tech, we know about the offense and Paul Johnson and the option, and gosh, there are plenty of controversial opinions about that. But defensively speaking, that has not really been the wheelhouse for Paul Johnson since he took over. Really, for as far back as I can remember. With Georgia
there have been
Tech
instances here and there, quarter-wise, but
so
yes,
what does Nate Woody bring over from App State that can aid Georgia Tech in 2018?
So coaching ability, organization, they shift to a new defensive scheme, a lot more attacking 3-4, attacking aggressive mentality. No, the big thing is it's they're refreshing things on defense, and he has consistently developed players and developed defenses that cause havoc, which if you are Georgia Tech, and if you're Georgia Tech, thanks for listening, but Georgia Tech particularly with how they have the ability to control the ball on offense, if they are able to field a team that generates havoc a good amount of the time and gets opposing offenses off the field quickly, consistently, even if it's just a top 65-70 defense, if they can generate 2 or 3 defensive possessions where it's only 5 or 6 plays and a punt, that's almost assuredly a win with what their ceiling looks like it could be offensively this year. So whether or not Nate Woody is that dude, I think they're still a couple years away recruiting wise, even though they've been recruiting better of late. I don't think it matters how often how often Nate Woody reaches back into his quiver. That's a Robin Hood reference.
That's a Robin Hood reference.
Yeah. Or just, the arrows aren't necessarily there. The talent is not necessarily in Atlanta yet to field the kind of defense and to build the type of depth, that is needed with Georgia Tech. The good news is Taquan Marshall has a pretty high ceiling as a runner. We'll see as a passer, loses best receiver in Ricky June. Kervonte Benson is suitably dangerous. There's a couple of pieces still on that defense. I think Victor Alexander has been all over the place. But Georgia Tech, to me, feels, and it's a pretty balanced schedule. I think they play Miami before Miami goes to Virginia Tech. They go to USF in the non-conference part of the schedule. They're a little bit of ways away, but I think there's something pretty dangerous about this Georgia Tech team if the defense is even kind of below average.
So we could probably blow like an entire show talking about whether or not Paul Johnson is the right move for Georgia Tech moving forward. I know we're both fans on some level of the option.
Sure.
But what will this year do for the Paul Johnson tenure, Paul Johnson era at Georgia Tech?
What will it do? The Nate Woody hire?
Yeah. Well, just in general, what will this team's performance in 2018 mean for Paul Johnson now moving forward?
I mean, it's hard to say. They've recruited to this system for so long that it'd be hard to transition away from quickly if they hired somebody else. If they just said, it was a good, fun era. We won an Orange Bowl, but we're in Atlanta. I know there's academic issues getting people in, but there's so much talent in Georgia and surrounding areas, kids that want to play in the ACC, that we're going to go away from the option. If Georgia Tech goes 9-3 this year, which I don't think is crazy, then I think it cements him for a decent amount of time, unless there are personal issues with people in the Georgia Tech administration. The news that is disappointing is they play Clemson this year, so that's not the greatest cross division. They go to Louisville, and they finish with, it's not great, they go to Virginia Tech, Miami, and Georgia in the final 5 games of the year. So if Georgia Tech goes 9-3, that means a probable loss to Miami, Georgia, and Clemson.
Yeah, which isn't bad. Yeah,
they again beat Virginia Tech. And basically everybody else on their schedule, which means a win at USF, which means beating Duke, which wins at North Carolina, wins at Virginia. It's a really, really good year. And if they have the capability of going 9-3, I think they jump up and beat one of those teams.
All right. Well, look, I don't have any deep, dark opinions about Georgia Tech. I'm just really excited to see this offense again. They bring most of their offense back, their quarterbacks back, and usually that's a pretty good recipe for an exciting option offense.
That game at USF will be really fun. That's strength on strength.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, and the Bulls put out a really good defense.
And I care to see what the defense looks like under Nate Woody. So I think on some level we agree. talking about Georgia Tech. Let's talk about Virginia Tech, Dan.
I think they go 8-4. It's 7-5, 8-4.
8-4.
Yeah, 7-5. 7-5.
I'll go 7-5. That's what I'm thinking. Let's go to Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Virginia Tech is coached by a fine gentleman, a friend of the podcast, Justin Fuente. So let's start with Josh Jackson. Mm-hmm. Okay, Josh Jackson was rumored to maybe be in some limbo.
Yes.
I don't know if it was because of academics or another reason, but for whatever case, Josh Jackson for a while seemed like maybe his eligibility would be in doubt. It does not seem like that will really play any kind of effect on the 2018 version of Virginia Tech, and I think that's a really big deal. They need Josh Jackson back to have that offense firing on all cylinders. I think he's got a good line in front of him. I think he's got good receivers to throw to potentially.
Yeah.
The defense is usually pretty good for Virginia Tech, led by Bud Foster and that lunch pail defense, Dan.
Blue collar.
Yeah. It does hurt that they lose Tremaine Edmonds, though, at linebacker. Like, I don't really want to undersell what that means for them. And I guess we're going to find out pretty much in week 1 when they square off against Florida State. But beyond that, I feel pretty good about the schedule, if I'm being honest here. Give me reasons why I shouldn't be bullish on Virginia Tech.
The back half of their defense is real new. And one of the things that they've been able to count on is continuity and developing talent and not having to fill in too many pieces year over year, just because a lot of players have gotten experience and have rotated in. And there's a lot of green players, both at linebacker and in the secondary. And I'm worried. I'm worried because what has allowed this defense to flourish is that familiarity and that experience within the defense. And there's just not a ton in that back half. So if Bud Foster fields a top 20, 25 defense, one, it'll be because of the line up front. Trevon Hill, really, really solid. But losing Big Tim Settle, who was a huge presence inside, losing not just Tremaine Edmonds, but Terrell Edmonds, whatever. It's a blow. I don't think there's any Fullers or Edmonds on this defense, which is new for Virginia Tech. And so it appears to be, and long term, I mean, he's been there like 20 plus years. It could be more of a rebuilding than a reloading year for Virginia Tech defensively.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You're right. That could all be true, but Virginia Tech could still go 4-1 through the first 5 weeks of the year. Because after that Florida State game, there's William and Mary, ECU, who we'll talk about later.
It's unbelievable.
Old Dominion on the road, and then at Duke. Those games are very winnable before they get to Notre Dame, before they get to a road spot against North Carolina. But even the rest of the way, like, you could have a below-average defense and still very easily find them at 9-3.
Yeah, which is sort of, I mean, not that they had a below-average defense last year. Their defense last year was excellent. It was really, really good. But they went 9-3 not because they perfectly embodied what we imagined to be a 9-3 team. Josh Jackson sort of fell off the second half of the season, and offensively, I think they struggled to run the ball a good deal. Cam Phillips sort of covered for a lot of miscues and ugliness on that offense against better teams. I mean, we saw that the Clemson game. So the good news for them this year, I think they have Notre Dame. They are in the body blow, the body blow stance of the year.
Yeah.
They get Notre Dame a week after Stanford.
That's right. Right.
They host Miami a week after Miami travels to Georgia Tech, which is its own body blow situation. And if you look at the schedule in a sort of holistic, full way, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So they could very well be a clear 6-6, 5-7 team that goes 8-4. Which is a good place to be.
No, it's a fine place to be.
And even if Josh Jackson struggles without really that, I mean, I think there's intriguing talent at receiver, but even if he struggles, if he looks like the Josh Jackson of the sort of back half of last year, they have recruited, I think they have 2 blue chip quarterbacks behind him, Quincy Patterson from this past class and Hendon Hooker, the class before that. So They're not in the worst situation offensively, but there seem to be more questions than usual with this Virginia Tech program.
Here's the thing about Virginia Tech, Dan. Mm-hmm. In the last, I think, 2 years under Justin Fuente, Virginia Tech is something like 11-5 in the ACC.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad by any stretch. This team this year, even though they've got some losses on defense, some big losses, is probably every bit as talented as both of those teams. So I don't expect there to be any kind of significant drop-off, especially with a schedule that, as you pointed out correctly, is very, very favorable. So 9-3 to me feels very attainable, even if, to your point, we're only talking about a 6-6 caliber team. They might go to a bowl game and get drilled, but looking at this schedule, it is very favorable for the Hokies.
There are only 3 games where definitively they look like underdogs: Florida State, Notre Dame, and Miami. And they have Notre Dame and Miami at home at a tough place to play. So Virginia Tech has a high floor, is what I think we should make peace with. That's a good place to be.
Am I able to give away a little bit of the game here?
You do whatever you want. It's half your show.
I mean, we'll just say that Virginia Tech is something you should pay attention to if you are interested.
What are you doing?
Okay, forget it. Okay. I won't go there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
We'll let it go. We'll let it ride.
Oh, thank God. I had heart palpitations.
I'll tell you what we shouldn't let ride, though. What we shouldn't let ride is this awesome 40% discount that our listeners can get right now by going to theathletic.com/solidverbal, Dan.
Yes. Oh, my goodness, yes.
The Athletic, a subscription-based publisher of smarter sports coverage for diehard fans. There's no ads. There's no pop-ups. There's no autoplay videos. It's so many of our friends who have been on the podcast week in, week out, year in, year out here talking about all things college football. We believe in what they're doing. They've got more than 650 news stories published every week across all sports, local, national stuff. So many of the big names. While we're talking about Virginia Tech, I saw Andy Bitter is going to be writing about all things Virginia Tech for The Athletic. This is really great quality content, which you can get now as a Verballer for $2.99 a month, which is not bad at all, Dan. That is a bargain as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it's ridiculous. You think about what you pay for Spotify, or if you are in like Kickstarters, whatever your Netflix, whatever your monthly digital payments are. The Athletic is, and I know a lot of people are curious, and I reached my tipping point. And it wasn't even college football. Like, I was already sold on the college football element, and I was going to sign up over the summer for all the preview stuff. And then I saw that they hired Ethan Sherwood Strauss, great NBA writer.
Yeah.
You're not just paying $2.99 for college football coverage. It's everything. It's local coverage of, whatever your favorite town is, if they're covered by The Athletic, whatever sport you're interested in. And it just happens that their college football lineup is a ridiculous murderer's row of talent. Bruce Feldman, Stu Mendel, Nicole Auerbach, your pal Pete Sampson, who covers Notre Dame as well as anybody in the world.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And Notre Dame, as semi-part of the ACC, should mention Pete Sampson, who's covered Notre Dame forever, and you get the access, you get the ins that you won't get on every other site in one place.
Absolutely. So
I love it. I read it every day, everything.
They do a terrific job. We believe in what they're doing. Dan and I both subscribe. Support The Athletic. Also help us out by going to theathletic.com/solidverbal. See what they have to offer. Dan and I have both been so just blown away by what they're putting together. We think you will be too.
It's so clean, too. It's just a clean experience. Solid Verbal. Help, even if you are only kind of interested, which is the baseline. Theathletic.com/solidverbal. Give it a look. It helps us, it helps them, it helps you. Win-win-win.
Speaking of clean experiences, Dan.
Ooh, that's why you're a pro.
Let's go to Duke football.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the turnover chain is nice and polished.
I almost did, but I wanted to throw you a curve. Let's go to Duke.
Okay. Good, clean fun. Duke football.
So here's what they bring back. Mm-hmm. My boy, Daniel Jones.
Redemption year.
Running back, Britton Brown.
Yes. Back up last year, but promising for sure.
Trey Hornbuckle, defensive end.
Has to be. Really good.
Joe Giles Harris. Didn't he have like an old pop song written about him? No, that was the Jay Giles Band, excuse me.
Yes.
Look.
Give me your deep, dark Duke thoughts.
I'm always a little higher on Daniel Jones than I should be.
That's okay.
Daniel Jones is really good his first year.
The best of Daniel Jones is really good.
Yeah, last year left a little bit to be desired. So I'm still kind of punch drunk on that Daniel Jones potential. I like the fact that they're going to blitz on defense.
I hope so. I hope they keep it up, that Jim Knowles defense, as he goes to Oklahoma State. Yes.
At least last year they liked blitzing on defense.
Yes.
What else? The schedule is somewhat tricky.
Yeah.
What else?
It's okay if you don't have a lot of strong Duke thoughts.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I don't really. Mm-hmm. They've got Clemson in the middle of like a tough stretch before South Carolina, so there's that, I guess. But
their non-conference schedule, when we've been looking at and preparing for these previews, I have, in the back of my mind, filed away that Duke is playing 14 different teams in the non-conference part. As I'm adding together wins, I'm saying, hey, they can beat Duke. About what felt like USC, UNLV, Michigan State. It turns out they have Army, Northwestern, Baylor, and North Carolina Central to start the season.
So here's the thing, okay? They bring back 15 starters from a year ago. They won, 6 games in the regular season. They won their bowl game, right?
They had
against Northern Illinois, Quick Lane Bowl, something like that, whatever. I think they are in actually a pretty good spot to improve upon their 6 wins from a year ago. Being so, they are a more veteran team.
Sure.
And being so, I think the schedule is relatively workable here. So I'm a little higher on Duke than I expected to be. Okay.
I think they are right in that bowl threat range once again, which is still new and crazy to say about Duke, given the recent history of the program. At least it's been a while since they've been flat out bad. They've been pretty decent recently. A little worried about their offensive line, but the defense looks solid all around. And again, playing in the Coastal, middle of the third quarter, Duke's up 14 on Virginia Tech? Okay, I guess I'm watching this. And Duke has one of the, all-time underrated or modern underrated coaches in David Cutcliffe, who is, if he is on one of those ESPN coaches channel during the playoff.
You watch to hear what he has to say.
He is one of probably my top 5 road trip coaches. We're just we're driving from LA to New York. We're driving from Seattle to
David Cutcliffe?
Yes.
In a road trip?
Yes, 100%. I think he is super smart. He's been around forever.
Jeez.
He's coached a ton. I mean, he's like the Manning's quarterback guru. If you want a road trip and, maybe it's not cross country. Maybe it's Austin to Minneapolis.
Wow, that's
but you just want it, you want to hear nerdy stories about college football. I think he is. He's a little folksy. He was at Tennessee. He was at Ole Miss. Coached the Mannings. He's been at Duke forever now. He is a very early draft pick in my coach's road trip to nerd out.
Let's pump the brakes on this here.
God, I can't believe you're disagreeing.
David Cutcliffe.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you think he has enough content to last from Austin to Minneapolis?
I would probably try to day drink. I don't know if he's a drinker. I definitely am not. I would try to get that honesty juice flowing because I want those Manning stories.
You're really mining there for Manning stories.
No,
that's all you're getting out of that from David Cutcliffe. I'm just telling you,
I think he, or just offensive explainers. I think he's got a lot. I think he's a smart dude.
I'm sure he's
I can't believe you're putting down Cut.
I like David Cutcliffe. I just don't know if I'd want to spend that many hours. I don't know how many hours it is from Austin to Minneapolis, but it's across the country, just not across the wide part. Okay.
With how receivers have developed there, with how quarterbacks have developed there, I think Duke, and I have their schedule in front of me right now, even with that weird, tricky, they open with an option, and then they go to Northwestern and go to Baylor, which should be improved. Schedule-wise, the back half is tough, or the back four. They have Miami and Clemson in a 2-week span. They finish with Wake. They go to Georgia Tech, and they go to Pitt, which, listen, Pitt's got to be different at a certain point than what they've been recently. I think Duke can get Army, Northwestern, Baylor, Virginia, Pitt, North Carolina. That gets them to 6, and even Wake, that gets them to 7.
7-5, 8-4 for Duke.
Whoa. Okay. I'm 6-6, 7-5.
By the way, how many times in 10 years have we gotten that question about which coaches would you like to be on a road trip with?
Which, yeah, rank coaches by condiments that they appear to be. Yeah. I'm telling you, David Cutcliffe is top 5.
All right. Let's move on. Let's go to Miami. Let's go back to that.
Let's do it.
Chain. Miami went 10-2 a year ago. An exciting year. Malik Rozier is back. Travis Homer is back. Amon Richards and Jeff Thomas are back. Mm-hmm. Joe Jackson, Shaq Quarterman, Michael Pinckney, Jaquan Johnson.
They might have the best linebacking core in the country.
Sheldrick Redwine, great name. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All back for Miami this season. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of reasons to be very optimistic about where this team could go next. It's part of the reason why they brought Mark Richt over after he was let go from Georgia. This is the best team that Mark Richt has had now in his 3 years at Miami.
Probably. Last year's defense was scary good. But yes, I can see potentially with the offensive experience being the most explosive offense that he's had.
They're very fast. They're very talented on offense. Mm-hmm. I think that they've got enough ammo on this schedule outside of the ACC with LSU in week 1 to really kind of, it's a tricky spot, establish themselves outside of conference. Talk me off the ledge. Tell me why Miami isn't a dark horse national title contender.
What?
Tell me why, Dan. Tell me why.
Because I think we all watched the back half of Malik Rozier's 2017.
But that was last year. Guys can improve.
They can improve. He showed a lot, but if he has to win games with his arm more often than not, and their schedule is such that even just opening with LSU, Greedy Williams, and that backfield.
LSU stinks. They stink this year. I'm out. I'm out on LSU.
So, okay, here's what Miami's schedule is. Here are games where you would worry if you're concerned about Miami. They host Florida State. And as far as ACC games, that's kind of it. No Clemson during the regular season. No Louisville during the regular season. No, team that you can talk yourself into being scary any given week like BC. Nobody like that. They go to BC, excuse me. So that was a very quick turnaround for that point. But really, I like this Miami team a lot. I think offensively they're going to be pretty scary. If Jeff Thomas continues to develop, I know Braxton Berrios is gone and Amon Richards has had injury issues, but if he's on the field, that right there is one of the best 8 receiving cores in the country. They recruited very well. Defensively, they should be in a good place. Even losing that defensive line, maybe even most importantly, losing Craig Kulongowski, who is one of the best 3 defensive line coaches in the country, had a ton of success at Mizzou, now goes to, you're going to be shocked to hear it, the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide, yeah, that's right.
Miami's in a very good place. I don't know that Malik Rozier is going to have the latitude to make as many mistakes while a defense is performing admirably as he did last year. I would keep an eye on N'Kosi Perry, who is young, yes, but has an arm and I think could develop, I think might have a higher ceiling now that we've seen Malik Rozier in a very Brandon Wimbush way. He certainly gives you a lot.
He is 6'4", 185. He's got a very James Blackman build to him.
Are you talking about N'Kosi Perry or Malik Rozier?
N'Kosi Perry, excuse me.
Oh, yeah. He's young. He'll put on more weight. But yes, I could see this Miami team going 10-2 and not having a lot of difficulty doing so.
Yeah, I feel 10-2. I don't think national title.
Okay, you asked about national title. I'm not quite there.
Well, but
I don't think they're good enough to beat
Hey, it's a question we were asking last year.
And you know what? It's a very good year to get Florida State at home with a new coach and a lot of quarterback questions, throwing into what should be a really dangerous back half of that defense.
All right.
So
we'll see.
I like Miami a good deal, and I think they're going to rotate in a lot of youth. And you're going to see a lot of different names, which is fun.
I'm excited to watch Miami this year.
As you should be. They lose a lot up front on defense, though. I am concerned about that.
Shall we go to Pitt now? The natural.
Oh, dude, I'm so ready. I am so ready.
Do you want to know the biggest addition for Pitt football 2018?
What is it?
Pat Bostic is back in the radio announcer.
Hell yeah.
My man, Pat Bostic. So here's the deal. I've talked about this before. I listen to a lot of games on the radio. Mm-hmm. Not always in front of the TV. I've got a life just like a lot of other people out there. I'm not always able to perch in front of a TV. I listen to a lot of games on Sirius XM.
Sirius XM.
And one of the great joys is listening to some of the hometown announcers. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys who I have genuinely enjoyed over the years, Pat Bostic. He hasn't called Pitt football in a couple of years, but just saw that he is going to be back in the booth. So
there's something pretty incredible about associating a lone singular voice with a program's games. I love that.
He's great. Former quarterback at Pitt. He's a great commentator. So I'm excited, just from a fan's perspective, to kind of get that insight listening to Pitt football this season. Pitt football last year, though, on the field went 5-7. And, you know, we're kind of in this vein now where we're looking at Pat Narduzzi, and I guess we're wondering if, when, can he bring any of that magic over that we grew accustomed to seeing with him as defensive coordinator at Michigan State? Mm-hmm. I think it's a fair question to ask.
It's been a slog for this defense these past few years.
It's been a slog. Now, this year, for his defense, he does have 9 guys back. And so that should bode well, I would think, for that defense. My question, though, is on offense. It really is on offense, where there's only 4 guys back. You mentioned Kenny Pickett, I think, a little earlier in this show. He gives Pitt fans, I think, a reason to be optimistic. But
scrappy.
You know, across the board here, Dan, we're talking about mostly a new offensive line, kind of a rebuild-ish situation on offense. So, like, I think that speaks to a potentially lopsided performance from the Pitt Panthers in 2018. Is that fair?
Yeah, we're 2 years removed from Pitt having one of, like, in the conversation, like, does Pitt have the best offensive line in the country? When they beat Clemson, their offensive line was ridiculous. And they, in recent years, have had 3-4 receivers who you're like, wow, they did a fantastic job developing these guys. And now it's just receivers not great. Running back might be fine for them. I like Kadrialis and Darren Hall, I think, came on pretty strong.
Yeah.
And it's just, they're in such a different place so quickly. And some of that to me is recruiting. Some of that to me is they've had a lot of transfers. Ben DiNucci came out last year as like a heralded true freshman, came in when Max Brown struggled. He struggled, transferred, gone. And so there's just like this crazy turnover happening with Pitt, that the emergence of Kenny Pickett, and he looks like he should start after how he finished last year. Ricky Town transfers in. Ricky Town of commit to Bama, commit and go to USC, transfer out of USC during fall camp, transfer to Arkansas, leave Arkansas for junior college, transfer to Pitt. So he might be the number 2 quarterback. The guy behind Ricky Town is Nick Patty, who I was pretty sure finished up his eligibility in like 2015.
Yeah.
And here we are. He goes Boise State, UCF, Pitt. So at least 7 schools between them.
A lot of frequent flyer miles on that Pitt roster.
A lot of just shirts to buy for your parents.
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of bookstore trips. Anyway, I am willing to believe in this Pitt team to like a 6-6 extent, because there isn't enough on defense that intrigues me. There just isn't. There's not there's a little bit of sauce, but it's like fast food size, not a full side dish at a restaurant in terms of sauce quantity. And the schedule is, it sets up in an interesting way as for being like the Indiana of, which I don't know who this is an insult to, the Indiana of the ACC Coastal, in the way that they happen to be in a lot of trap and look ahead and let down spots. They get Virginia Tech a week before Virginia Tech Miami. They get Miami a week before Miami goes to Georgia Tech and to Virginia Tech. They get Notre Dame a week after the Virginia Tech and Stanford 1-2. So Pitt's in a good place to be very pitty this year, to be secretly decent in that they are in the right place at the right time. But there's just the problem, Ty, and I think you can appreciate this. My lasting memory of the 2017 Pitt Panthers is Oklahoma State doing layup lines past them. Is watching that game, watching Oklahoma State drop like 50 on them in the first half, and doing so like Pitt showed up late to the stadium. Both of their safeties were wearing jeans. Like there was something absolutely disorienting about how Pitt looked in that game that anything beyond 6-6 a year later feels like a stretch. Because, again, that is burned into my skull I saw that day.
The indelible images of Oklahoma
Just James
State.
Washington abusing Pitt.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to say 7-5, Dan.
Okay.
I think they can get the 7-5, but it's really a leap of faith here that they can get it together more on offense because, look, just not a lot back from a year ago.
By the way, Pat, because you're bringing up Pat Bostic, good underrated quarterback name.
Yeah, very good.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Pat White. Pat Devlin, obviously a crowd favorite.
All right.
So there's a lot to it. All right, that's all I have. I was just thinking about like famous Pats.
Let's go to North Carolina.
Okay.
North Carolina 3-9 from a year ago. Their coach, Larry Fedora, a bit skeptical about football's effects on the human head.
God. And if North Carolina doesn't do well this year, that could be the end of the United States, specifically tied to football and, by extension, North Carolina football.
That might have been my favorite off-season story.
And they're like, God, it was just... The problem is, I'm going to start my thoughts on this in like 17 different
I'm crying.
ways.
Oh, God.
Imagine having... Imagine thinking about this topic in a nuanced way and trying to say things like,
God.
Football is safer than it's ever been, which is totally true.
That's true. Yeah, sure.
But you can't wrap that in garbage. You can't wrap that in nonsense. And it takes away So, as background, Larry Fedora at ACC Media Days decided that was the time to say, you know, America's troops are the best because so many of them played football. And if football goes away as we know it, so will the United States of America. And decided to use that platform to say these things. And it makes you want to root against North Carolina. It just does.
Well, it reminds me a lot of just having a lot of opinions on things.
Yes.
Mutually exclusive things that end up kind of running together because you feel strongly about all of them.
Right.
And so when I read about this, I was like, wow, okay, that's it. That's an eye-opener.
Of all the academic institutions and the academics' relationship to football, North Carolina, sterling. No issues between academic thought and football that I
got rejected from UNC.
Really?
Yeah.
It's real nice. Chapel Hill.
Beautiful.
That area is great. Yeah. Should we talk about North Carolina? And they surely will be better this year.
They will be better. They've got 13 starters back. Mm-hmm. As I see it here, a pretty favorable road schedule, Dan.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely they do.
Going to Miami, which will be difficult, but beyond that, like at Syracuse, at Virginia, at Duke, you can navigate that in the ACC. I think this is a team that is really ripe for a lot of improvement in 2018.
Okay. Yes, the road schedule is very good. They go to Cal, and as we know, body clock tie.
Yep, body clock.
The Bauer Hour. Man. They go to East Carolina. That's fine. UCF will not be as good as the Knights were last year.
No,
But
I don't think so.
If you're UCF and you get to throw into the North Carolina defense, pretty good.
Yep, no, that's perfectly fine.
Mackenzie Milton should, if you are into fantasy college football and you are able to draft a group of 5 players, that will be a good time to start Mackenzie Milton. Yes, they go to Miami, and that's going to be difficult, but hosting Virginia Tech, hosting Georgia Tech, they get West Carolina. They finish the season, the rivalry game against NC State. So in terms of the road schedule to bounce back, yes, this could be a bull schedule for North Carolina. Quarterback is still, to me, an issue, but quarterback should be at least fine with where quarterbacks have been recently with North Carolina. Probably not the same since Seth Littrell left, but the possibility of a Chaz to a Daz.
Ooh, boy. Yeah.
Chaz Surratt to Daz Newsome is pretty tantalizing.
Yeah, buddy.
And just because we like putting these teams in the context of could they find themselves right place, right time, they do get Miami a week before Miami's Florida State game. They miss Florida State and Clemson cross-division wise. And Anthony Ratliff-Williams came on real nicely last year. Jordan Brown, I think, is intriguing. They could find themselves, if either Chaz or Nathan Elliott ends up under center, they could win some games 35-30. They could, for sure.
I think I'm with you. They can't be any worse than 3-9. They're not going to be 3-9 again.
No, they'll be healthier for sure.
They're going to be healthier. The schedule is quite favorable.
Worried about the offensive line. I am. That is worrisome.
Yeah. As I look at the schedule, I'm going to count ECU. I'm going to count Pitt. I'm going to count Virginia, not Virginia Tech. Syracuse, West Carolina, and I'll throw another in there. I'll say 6-6.
I'm going to say 5-7. I don't
Okay.
think they make a bowl game. 4-8, 5-7-ish. Too many questions. When you have the quarterback and offensive line question on the same team, not my favorite. That's
Fair enough.
Should we finish this out?
Let's do it.
All right. Prepare yourselves. We have, we've been recording for what looks to be about, 48 minutes?
Yes,
So we've got about an hour to talk about Virginia.
that's right.
Kurt Bankert, gone.
Gone. He was pretty good.
Yeah, moments. He had some dips, some dipping sauces.
Yeah.
Their offense is going to be, they better hope Bryce Perkins, who looks like he's going to be the starter, the transfer who I think played junior college in Arizona, dual threat guy. They have to hope he's super good. They've got a couple good receivers, one of whom might have my favorite name in the conference, if not beyond, and he is my dude, Ty. Olamide Zaccheaus.
Wow.
Is super good.
You did better
And
with that than I could have.
He is he's very good and fast. And it's unfortunate that he has to play for that offense. They lose a good amount on defense. Quinn Blanding is like the hipster Derwin James of the ACC, the do-all safety that was ridiculous for a long, long time. Virginia's going to have a pretty decent defense, I think. They'll have a top 45-50 defense, and that'll get them pretty far against some possibly suspect offenses. Duke struggled at times on offense. North Carolina struggled on offense. Pitt struggled on offense. Virginia Tech had some stretches where they weren't scoring points. So continuity, even though they lose some key pieces up front of Virginia's defense, especially in the back half of that defense, has me feeling like even with some much needed talent in Charlottesville, that they can go to a bowl game once again. They'll be right on that quest, that 5-7, 6-6 quest again.
Drive for 6.
Yeah.
I say 6-6. I'm with you.
Okay. Reasonable.
I have it, by the way. I came up with it.
What?
ACC Coastal is going to get a little crazy. It always does, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. There's like a hardy middle class.
ACC Postal.
It's so unfair to the postal workers of this country, Ty. Day in and day out, rain or shine. ACC Postal is not bad.
ACC
I like
Postal.
that.
Thank you. The Fat Atlantic and the Postal. There you go.
The Fat Atlantic and the Postal. You want to talk about the American East real quick?
The AAC East. Yes. So we've got who? UCF, who went 11-0 last year, regular season, won the national championship, of course.
Yes.
We've got USF, Temple, ECU, Cincinnati, and UConn. We've already tipped our hand a little bit in saying that the notes field of our shared document says meh for all three of them, but
couldn't really find much to care about.
So let's talk about UCF. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about UCF. Their coach is obviously gone. He's going home, Dan, to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Scott Frost no longer the head football coach. They bring over Josh Heupel. From Missouri. He was formerly the offensive coordinator there last year. Led a really good Missouri offense. Mm-hmm. So with that coaching change, I think brings a little bit of uncertainty for UCF now as they prepare to try and defend that title in 2018. Where do we stand with the Knights?
So they're not going to try to do all that much different, I don't think, on offense from where they've been these past couple of years. Mackenzie Milton is back and is, top 10 quarterback in the country at his best.
Sure.
Loses Traquan Smith, but Dredrick Snelson is back and productive. I'm a little bit more concerned about what they lose on defense, namely a guy who is playing all 11 positions at once and is just a stupid good player in Shaquem Griffin, who moves on to the NFL and all-American caliber linebacker. So that hurts. They lose a lot around him on defense as well. And it wasn't a fantastic defense, but losing a lot from a slightly below average defense concerns me because I don't think the offensive fireworks will be there like they were last year. They do hire Randy Shannon, so he will be installing his defense. And I would imagine because of his connections, if Josh Heupel lasts at UCF, where they Orlando, that the defense should be pretty good given Randy Shannon's history and ability to get talent. But they're not going undefeated.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
So beyond UCF then, who is clearly, I think, the top dog in the AAC East, we've got USF, a USF team that, USF's been in the news recently. I think they're in decent shape.
Yeah, especially on offense. Sterling Gilbert, yeah.
Could be Blake Barnett playing quarterback this year. Mm-hmm. You remember Blake Barnett, speaking of frequent flyer miles. I think this should be a pretty good team here. Yeah,
they have the clear best defense, and we'll see what happens with Temple, but they have the clear best defense in the division, if not the conference as a whole. We'll see what Houston at Oliver looks like. But yeah, USF should probably win 9 or 10 games again. And season was cut short last year, but this is going to be a very good USF team. Quentin Flowers is like an all-time special player. I mean, granted, USF has existed for 14 years, but he has been ridiculous. So they're going to miss him. But yeah, they're going to be really good. They're really well coached, and that brings us to Temple.
Yeah, let's talk about the real story of the AAC East, if we could.
Yes, I'm ready.
Temple has a middle linebacker in Philly by the name of Shaun Bradley.
I am so happy. How does this happen? How did nobody tell us?
Oh, God.
Owls.
This is great.
Yeah, Jeff Collins in, year one, finishes the season strong. They win 4 of 5, including their bowl game. Could have been 5 of 6. They lose in overtime to Army. Raquel Armstead is still there and should have a nice year for Temple on the ground. And there is no reason to me that, and I can pull up Temple's schedule. I won't make any grand proclamations, but I think in year 2, this Temple defense under Jeff Collins is going to become pretty scary. They've recruited well enough. Let's see. Villanova, Buffalo, possibly Buffalo. They go to Maryland, which tricky, but it's still Maryland, and it's week 3, so all of their quarterbacks might be hurt by then. To Navy, it's a tough schedule. I think Temple can win 7 or 8 games and improve.
So do you think that Shaun Bradley was recruited to Temple
Oh, poor guy.
Because
Probably doesn't even know who the older Shaun Bradley
because his name was Shaun Bradley?
Do you think that's a reason to bring him to Philly because his name is Shaun Bradley?
I mean, Philly fans could be tricked, especially when drunk.
Damn, that's unfortunate. And he's pretty good.
He is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. That's all I have. So essentially, the American East has 3 teams that are decent, at least, if not fun and pretty good. There's not much to expect from, especially ECU. UConn loses Rhett Lashley to, I believe, SMU. He's the new offensive coordinator there with what's his face from Cal, Dykes. So I'm hitting a wall tie as it comes to my enthusiasm for the AAC, but you have a division with UCF and USF. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good. A lot of fun cross-divisional matchups in the American. Worth watching, as it was last year. Secretly one of the best TV shows in college football. You should do so once again.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you for listening to our preview. Don't forget, you can buy tickets to our exciting live show. The live show is in 6 days in Chicago, the historic Vidum Theater. You can go to solidverbaltickets.com if you're interested in buying tickets. Again, don't need to be a verballer. Don't need to be a college football fan. We're going to do a fun show for everybody. Bring friends. There are limited tickets still available. We want to try and squeeze everyone in there if at all possible. If you're unable to make the show, again, it starts at 7 p.m. Central Time. Meet us out at the bar, the Standard Bar, afterwards for hashtag Tenders with Ty.
Standard Bar in Wicker Park. I think it's on Milwaukee Ave.
Absolutely. Also, don't forget to check out theathletic.com/solidverbal. They'll give you 40% off your first year, just $2.99 a month. It's a good deal.
Has already made my college football consumption more streamlined, more pleasant, more grown up, if that makes any sense. It's just
it's the
evolution.
Look, we wouldn't advertise it if we didn't believe in it.
That's true.
That's sort of our motto here. So check it out.
Big fan of everybody there.
Theathletic.com/solidverbal. Daniel, on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about the SEC West. Kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal in the world of college football.
Yeah, we've got 15, 20 minutes worth of content anyway. So
at least.
Pumped. Yeah.
All right. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You can also subscribe on Apple, Google, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, anywhere where fine podcasts are sold. You can subscribe to our show. You can always email us at solidverbal@gmail.com. And if you go to solidverbal.com, you can sign up for our newsletter where we're going to be emailing periodically. Let you know what's new in the verballerhood.
Yeah, drop a review. It helps. Anywhere you listen, drop a review. Always great.
Dano, that's all I got for tonight.
Whew. ACC Postal. You gave me Fatlantic, I'll give you Postal.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrand, thanks again for tuning into the Solid Verbal. We will catch you all on Wednesday. In the meantime, stay solid.
Peace.